out there. This is J.M. Kearns. That's me. And I've got a strange story to tell you, but it's true. Anyway, I started writing songs in my mid-20s, and that was in the 1970s. And I've been writing songs ever since. So I've written songs in 5 different decades. And when I started out, I was very influenced by and sort of inspired by the songs of Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen. Those were the 2 biggest ones for me. And there were lots of others that I loved too, including Hank Williams Sr. and Graham Parsons and, the Beatles, the Stones, and Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald. But, I was mostly compelled. I was sort of captured by folk rock, what became called folk rock. I started writing songs in my mid-20s because my idols were not writing what I needed to hear, because music was kind of my religion. And when you care that much about songs, and by the way, I really cared a lot about lyrics too, not just the melody and the chords and all that, but I cared about the lyrics too. And I liked lyrics that said something. And I had read a lot of poetry and novels and stuff, so, I had a lot of respect for the written word, and that was part of the reason why I liked both those guys. They both had a very strong connection to literature and poetry. There I was in my mid-20s, and I'm starting to have terrible relationships, because it seemed to me it was a good idea to have a whole bunch of relationships that failed first so that I could write lots of songs about them, and also I could learn all sorts of horrible lessons, mostly about myself, which might qualify me to have a decent relationship with somebody at some point. And boy, I did an excellent job of that, I can say. So I found that I was feeling things. You feel things in detail. You feel things with all the detail of your own life, sort of like a movie or a documentary about your own life. And you feel things about the people you're involved with. And I found that my idols, Dylan and Leonard Cohen, were not, they weren't expressing in their songs what I needed to hear in music. And since music was my religion, it was really important to me. There was a vacuum there. It had to be filled. So I had to start writing songs myself, because then they would be talking about the things that I was actually experiencing, and that's what I needed to hear. That's how I processed life, was through songs. So not to get too, extreme about this, but I started writing songs, and as soon as I started, they would come to me very quickly and readily, a lot of songs. I never sat down, even unto now, and I'm in my 70s now, and what I'm presenting on this YouTube channel is a retrospective of my songwriting right from the beginning. And so if you look at my music videos, you're going to see photos of me that look like some younger guy. Some of them don't even look like what I look like now. But that's because I thought it was okay if I would use photos that came from the time that particular song was written. And I'm presenting songs on this YouTube channel that were written in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 20s, the 2010s, right up to recent years. I still haven't stopped writing songs, but I'm writing a lot fewer of them now. They're not coming as thick and fast as they used to. So I started writing songs, and they came in great plenty. But my songs never really got in the public eye. They never got in the radar screen of the public. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. And the two main reasons were that I became convinced, with the help of some people that I worked with early on, I became convinced that I should not be the person to sing my songs. I wasn't the right vehicle for for my own songs. And I was trying to figure out, how you could get your songs actually on the radio, or, get your songs recorded so other people would hear them. And so I did a thing that turned out not to be really a very good idea. But what I did was I found demo singers, and I was in LA when I started doing this. Then I was in Nashville for 13 years. And then I broke the habit during that time in Nashville. So I would hire demo singers and a lot of my songs that I was writing that I thought might be commercial, I never tried to write a commercial song, but I would look at my songs and think, well, some of these could be recorded by an artist, a real artist, and get on the radio. And someday I might walk into a dingy bar and find one of my songs on a jukebox, which was my dream. And I still dream about it, but only at night when I'm asleep. Anyway, so I realized that it's mostly country artists back at that time, and we're talking now in the 1980s and the 1990s. It was mostly country artists who didn't write their own stuff. And most folk and rock artists wrote their own stuff, so they weren't looking for songs from me. So I thought I should hire a country demo singer. And in LA, I found this guy who was the biggest demo singer in LA for country stuff. And he wasn't very expensive, and he would come over to my house, and I'd give him a cassette of one of my songs. He'd learn it, and then he'd come over and sing it for me. To make a really long story short, it turned out that I realized after a while that hired demo singers, very seldom captured the actual unique feeling of a song, of an original song. That wasn't their forte. So on the rare occasions when I actually managed to get a demo listened to by someone in the music industry, for example in Nashville, who could actually possibly green light the song, a gatekeeper who could pass it on to a producer or an artist or a manager or somebody. On the rare occasions when that happened, they kind of liked them, but they just didn't like them enough. The song didn't grab them enough. And so after a while, I started my own band. And by the way, the second reason why my songs have never gotten in the public eye is that I had terrible stage fright. And that's because in my early days, when I first was writing songs, I tried to audition for some, restaurants and clubs and stuff and bars. And I would just inevitably, every time I'd get rejected. And it was partly because I was really nervous. I never projected any self-confidence. And it was partly because my idea of introducing a song was to tell the audience why they probably wouldn't like it. And, a lot of my songs are fairly dark, as they say. And, I like to write about lost love and heartbreak and death and depression and, things like that, that I find cathartic. Although I have written a few cheerful songs to my own surprise, but anyway. So these auditions didn't go well. And it wasn't until the woman who later became my lifetime partner told me one night in Nashville to just listen, J.M., just shut up between songs. If you can't, don't persuade the audience that they're not going to like the next song. Like, chill a bit in between songs. Don't talk in between songs, okay? Can you do that for me? Don't say anything. Just get ready for your next song and then sing the next song. See how it goes. And I did that one night at a place called the Gold Rush, which was a very sort of seedy, dangerous bar, and wonderful bar, actually, in Nashville, where a lot of real dubious people hung out. And That was the first night that people came walking up to me after I played for 1 hour, because I had a gig that paid $27.50 once a week. And people came up to me after my little set and said nice things. Like they had enjoyed the songs. They'd been listening to them. They'd been paying attention. And that's when I started to learn that, maybe I am supposed to be the vehicle of my own songs. And so I started my own band. And then when I moved to Cape May, New Jersey, in 2010, a trio formed. Me and my partner Deborah and our best friend MQ Murphy formed a trio, and we play in Cape May, and we do originals sometimes, and we do lots of obscure cover tunes, songs that we really love. And so a couple of years ago, actually it was during COVID, I started thinking, I want to get my stuff online, because now it's really possible to get your stuff online on a place like YouTube or a site like Bandcamp, where people can actually support you, and buy songs and download them if they want to. I thought, I'm going to go through all the songs I've ever written, and there were literally hundreds of them. I'm going to find what I think are the best ones from all the different decades, and I'm going to start issuing albums. So anyway, I've created and issued 3 albums since the beginning of 2024. All those songs are on YouTube, on this channel. And I'm planning 2 more albums. Probably both of them are coming out next year. One of them is going to be mostly country songs, and the other is going to be my earliest songs. So I'm going to try to wrap this up fairly quickly, but I thought you might like to know what a few topics are of my songs. So I made a little list here. There are stories about love, romantic love, friendship, family love, love that's genuine, love that's misguided and mistaken and turns into a train wreck, and true love and false love. And of course, a lot of songs have been written about that. But I also I like to write about the past, things that are out of reach, beautiful things that we kind of turn into a mythic paradise in our heads, and we can't return to them. Now, I mentioned family relationships. I wrote a pretty mystical song about my relationship with my father that is based on a dream that I had. It's called Crystal Waters, and it's on my first album that I issued last year, which is called, the album is called Before the Coffee Gets Too Cold. And I've been writing a lot of songs about aging, what it feels like to get old, and the fear of death, and the fear of not completing your own personal to-do list. But I've been writing songs about death and that kind of thing since I was in my 20s, and a lot of the artists that I like the most were doing that too, even when they were young, so it's not anything unusual. Speaking of young, Neil Young used to do that too. And I've written a couple of songs about religion, and one of them is called Jesus Why. It's about a guy who's can't forgive himself for a lot of the things that he's done in his life. But he keeps having these visions of this figure following him, this person. And the person is Jesus. And in the song, he asks, Jesus, why are you still following me? Anyway, that's another one. There's a couple of those. Then I've always been interested or sort of fascinated by the horrors of the corporate world and the need to make a living, the things people have to do to make a living, the things I've done to make a living, because I never really made any significant money from music, so I always had to have a day job. Anyway, I worked in a law firm for a long time. So I've written songs about money and the corporate world and the secret thoughts of bureaucrats. And I think I mentioned before, I've written some songs about depression. There's one song I wrote in the mid-1980s called Dark Current, which can be found on this channel. And just generally how life kind of can kill your spirit and how you don't want that to happen. So those are some of the topics that I've written about. So anyway, many of my songs were recorded at the time that I wrote them, back in the day. But some of them were never recorded, or I don't like the original recordings. And so I've recorded them for the first time, or I've recorded them better in the last couple of years. And so you will find quite a few recordings on my channel that are older, and you'll also find quite a few that are very recent. And every song on this channel, you will find in the description a little backstory of the song, and I'll be saying when it was written and when it was recorded. So that's it for now. I hope you enjoy the songs in this channel. Please comment on things and like them, and please subscribe. And if you know anybody that you think would like this kind of song, please tell them about it. So that's it. Thank you for watching this, and I'll be adding lots of new stuff to this channel constantly. And that's it. Thanks.